Good morning, everyone. I'm Rob Atkinson. I'm president of the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. And we're really delighted to host this event this morning on the current state of U.S. manufacturing, where it's likely to be going, and most importantly, what are the things that we need to do as a country, including in Congress, to make sure that we have a robust future for manufacturing and manufacturing jobs. We'll proceed today with a short presentation, keynote presentation. We're going to have the first panel on a little bit about kind of where we are, where we're going. Then we'll switch over to a second panel, which will be a deeper dive into technology questions, particularly around smart manufacturing, or what people call industrial internet or industry 4.0, and then we'll adjourn precisely at 11:15. We were really I'm looking forward to hearing from Alberto, but we were really looking forward to hearing from Alberto Forchielli, who's the CEO of IMA, which is one of the leading global companies that makes packaging equipment. In other words, most of what we buy has a package around it, and there's incredibly complex machinery that allows companies to package. And IMA is a company that does that, and Mr. Forchielli was planning to be in town today, and we thought, what a great opportunity to hear from him about how he sees Europe and America in manufacturing. Unfortunately, he had a minor illness and wasn't able to come to the States, but we are fortunate that his colleague Alberto Forchielli happens to be also in town. So Alberto's going to step in and pinch hit here. Alberto is actually, through his company, one of the major investors in IMA. And he's also a very close colleague with Mr. Forchielli, so he can channel Mr. Forchielli's thoughts as well as provide his own. Alberto is the founding partner of Mandarin Capital Partners. He has a really deep background in economic policy globally. He has worked for the Italian government, the Italian special advisor to the Italian Minister of Defense, the Minister of the Budget, Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He also is a leading expert in China. He writes regularly for the Kaizen media, which if you haven't seen that, it's worth looking at, and has his own English language blog, albertoforchielli.com, and also tweets extensively, but I think it's mostly in Italian. But really has a deep knowledge, and in particular, a deep knowledge of what's going on in China. Spent many years in Southeast Asia, investing in China, understanding China, looking at what China's doing in manufacturing. He has a MBA from the Harvard Business School and a bachelor's in economics from the University of Bologna. So with that, Alberto.
Thank you. I keep my iPhone here. I'm not chatting. Just my speech is here. Just thank you very much. I'm very honored to speak to such a distinguished audience. I'll spend a few words on European manufacturing. To us, European manufacturing is extremely important. We do cherish it very much. I mean, for whatever manufacturing is left in Europe, that manufacturing pays pretty good salaries. I mean, vis-a-vis services, because services, you can be like a partner in Goldman Sachs, but you can also be like a teller in McDonald's. But if you are in a good manufacturing company competing globally, if you are working at Volkswagen or Audi or Siemens, you are pretty big shot in town. You take home a significant salary. So for whatever manufacturing is left, we see it as the treasure to preserve. And also keep in mind that we Europeans do not have many alternatives to manufacturing. If you take the UK away, because UK is no longer with us, the continental Europe does not have a service industry. We don't have IT, we don't have media, we don't have the Microsoft, we don't have the Google, we don't have the Amazon, we don't have all of that. So we haven't developed that side. We're really behind. So we really had to stick to what we know how to do, because we have not been very extremely innovative. And another point I want to make, the idea. There is this, if you talk to economists, most economists will tell you, well, it's natural. As the countries evolve, the service component will grow, and manufacturing will decrease. Well, thanks a lot. Then I spent a long time in Singapore. Okay. Now this is an example. Singapore is the richest country in the world, I believe, in terms of income per capita, GDP per capita. It has one of the largest, second largest harbor in the world, so it's tremendous service economy built around the harbor. It's a significant asset management center. I mean, fund management is big. People take money in Singapore. Singapore has replaced Switzerland as probably the largest asset management country in the world. Plus, Singapore is a tremendous retail economy. I mean, people come from all over Asia to shop in Singapore. Well, the island is probably like 20-mile wide, or 25 and 15 miles long. It's a trapezoid like this. Guess how much industrial GDP is in Singapore? 18%. Guess how much industrial GDP is in the States? Does anybody know? 12. I mean, in the richest country in the world, even the most homogeneous, not even the most unequal, you barely can see these factors, and still manufacturing accounts for 18% of the economy. And you think they wouldn't need it. Now, let me give you a few things about Europe that I think are significant. Europe has doesn't reach 2% R&D expenses on GDP. The U.S. is 2.74, which is higher, and Germany is the top with 2.9. Italy is the bottom, 1.3. However, our European tradition in manufacturing does pretty well. I mean, think of the car industry. Think about the Audi, the Volkswagen, the Mercedes vis-a-vis GM, Ford, and Chrysler. I mean, the automatic machinery industry, basically in the U.S. has disappeared. Take away from the U.S. aerospace and defense. It's okay, but it's not great. However, the two countries have spent almost the same. The big difference is, I think, this is my theory, I'm not sure it's well-founded, but a lot of R&D expenditure in the U.S. have gone into innovative industries, and you can see the result. There are whole sectors that don't exist in Europe. We don't have a Google again, we don't have an Amazon, Europe does not have a social network. So the U.S. has been pretty good at shifting this R&D in new sectors away from traditional sectors. While Europe, in the whole of Europe, we don't have an innovative ecosystem. Innovative ecosystem are Boston, Silicon Valley, Tel Aviv, Singapore, Shenzhen, Bangalore, Shanghai, none. The amount of venture capital in Europe is probably less than 100. It's not even $1 billion a year. I think Silicon Valley is 20. The rest of the U.S. is probably 30. I think the overall volume of VC volume in the U.S. could be around 50. So 1 to 50, how much is it? Like 2%? So we don't have anything new, but we do spend, and what we spend is in keeping what we have, innovating what we have. That's why manufacturing is important. That's a lesson, because we have to, since we're not good at doing much else, we need to keep what we have. But there's also a lesson for the U.S. Had the U.S. spent more, they could have kept more. It wouldn't need to be 12%. It could be easily 20. There there is anything between 5 to 8% of GDP missing there for neglect. And over there, I have my own theory, which is what I can see in everyday business. I mean, traditionally, the exit cost for industrial companies in the US have been way too low. You can shut the plant in 3 months here and get the hell out. Try to do the same in Europe. You go like through hell, misery. I mean, so it's very easy for anybody to say, oh, why should I invest here? I mean, I may as well move everything over to Malaysia or something. We made it a little bit too easy, okay? And also psychologically, I was in business school, class of 81. Back then, it's almost 4 years, there was nobody that ever considered then having an interview with a manufacturing company. We were all thinking about consulting, investment banking, banks. Now the big thing in business school is startups. Yeah, great startups. But you keep building something new, but you forgot the old, so it's just like, it's hard. You know, you should keep what we have and build on top of it. But I'm not here to preach on another interesting point. Manufacturing is important. Europe is very different. You can't say, every country is different institution, different features. However, Eastern Europe manufacturing is 40% on GDP. 40% is a big chunk. Germany, we are around 28%. Italy, we are around 25%, with a big difference. North of Italy much more, and southern Italy much less. France is around 20. The lowest country, the country has the lowest manufacturing is Luxembourg, 11.7, which is, again, I've been in Luxembourg. I lived in Luxembourg. I used to work in the European Investment Bank, which is a development bank, like the World Bank. And I used to have a bicycle hobby then, so I went back and forth in Singapore. I know every single street corner. When I read that Singapore has 11.7% in manufacturing, I said, whoa, where is manufacturing? Have you ever been to Luxembourg? How many manufacturing plants have you seen in Luxembourg? None. Well, I mean, according to the numbers, the US is like Luxembourg. Luxembourg 11.7, the US is 12%. I mean, it doesn't sound right. Let me go on. Yeah. Because I'm stealing a lot of points from Mr. Vacchi, by the way. And people will stop calling. Now, wrap up. Wrap up. Well, we do have issues, okay? Let's tell what the issues that European manufacturers face. The first is everything has been based on mechanics, on being good at perfecting mechanics, and manufacturing has been mainly done by mechanical engineer or chemical engineer. But now, the incremental improvement you can achieve through better mechanics is marginal. Now the future is all software. And then we have a huge problem there, because Europe is not good at software at all. There is SAP in Germany, that everybody knows. That's about it, okay? And that means the attraction for the States, the attraction for, you simply don't find good software engineers in Europe. And especially, it's not a school. There is not a tradition. You know, to build a competence, you need generation and generation and generation. You have to build up. You don't just like get new kids out of college. So the whole thing, moving towards software, plays into the US hands. You know, talk to any manufacturer in Europe, they want to buy AI stuff here. They want to buy 3D printers here. I mean, I'm familiar with the MIT. MIT is flooded by the Bosch, by the BMW this world. They go and try to scrape and buy and look at whatever is possible to buy, because that thing simply doesn't exist. The second major threat, not to be underestimated, I see every day, is a tremendous improvement of China. I've been in Asia for almost 25 years, living all over Asia, and I'm on my way to Bangkok tomorrow. Like 10 years ago, I had a European company, because that's part of my business. Everybody would come to me, every Chinese would come to me and say, oh, just come over and we'll do a JV because, they make such good equipment and so on. And it was very easy for me to invest because I really like to invest in European company with Asian upside. Now, 1 out of 30. European company come to me and says, I want to be in China. I go to China. Chinese don't care because Chinese are up to 90%. They're not as good as we are, but they've reached 90% perfection. So they say, well, the cost premium, the price premium you require to make that production in China doesn't justify. I may as well buy, I may as well stick to my Chinese machinery, which is 10% less efficient, but half the price. So, but this is not the only thing. In fact, the fact is, these guys are coming in, and they're cutting us off in emerging market. I mean, if they go to Pakistan does not buy a German machine. And they prefer to buy a Chinese machine. Half the price, 90% as good, come with a bundle of financing, who the heck cares? So they're really undermining in the emerging market. We don't, we may not see it, but they are. And the second thing, for most industrial player, because Europe is big in industrial, the very big consumer goods are mainly American, from P&G to whatever, okay? If you talk to industrial, the whole market is shifting to Asia. Because if you look at like 50% of industrial product, they're manufactured here. So our clients are more and more in Asia. Now we find not only undermined by Asian competitors, mainly Chinese, in our traditional markets, but we also find that we have to go and compete for Chinese clients. They have their own industry. So they have to either buy imported machinery and vis-a-vis local machinery with all the custom and everything accruing to it. And so it's becoming hard. So we're very scared. I really have no solution. But I'm not that far off from thinking that a new rethinking of the WTO or some protection is needed. That's about it. They have a third point, but I'm okay, right?
You're good. Well, let me ask you one question. So, I thought first of all, that was great, thank you. And I thought this point about the U.S. really kind of embracing the new but forgetting the old. It's really the flip side of Europe. Europe has embraced the old, sort of either forgets the new or sometimes demonizes the new. They can't be new, they're going to try to knock us down a peg because we're new. And I think that sort of getting that balance right between the old and the new, you got to do both. I think that was a really important point. And the second is this, that sort of mechanics has reached its peak, and that to go further, you have to integrate digital or software and mechanics. And at some level, that's a strength of the U.S. and it's a weakness of Europe, although perhaps we could do better at mechanics. So. Thoughts on that? Want to say a couple more things on that and wrap up?
I don't know. I just now more thoughts on that. I just it's all about. I think it's it. No, there is another point maybe I want to make, that since I cannot answer this because I reached my maximum level of incompetence. There is another point I want to make that relates to you. One big advantage, Europe differential. One of the reasons European industry has held on though, is being the proximity of Eastern countries. So there's been a lot of outsourcing and relocation from Germany to Poland, from Italy to Romania. I mean, there are countries like the Slovak Republic. They are like almost a full employment. So to us, having the buffer the Eastern Europe is allowed to get going. So what I see, while I'm very, very aggressive and not indulgent vis-a-vis China, I do have a soft spot for Mexico and the role that Mexico played for the U.S. So when I hear this sort of wild discussion about NAFTA and chopping out Mexico, okay, if someone comes to me and says we have to chop off Poland, the Slovak Republic, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Hungary, I don't like it. I mean, it's going to chop our feet off. So that I would use some caution in that.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.